Yoshi doesn't have to be a girl.
He lays eggs, man.
Those eggs are not for reproduction.
Okay.
There's two different kinds of eggs.
All right. Fair point. Fair point.
Wake up, everybody. Today is Thursday, Karch 32nd. We are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I am one of your hosts, Karch Paloshti, joined by my co-hosts Jason Wright and Sean Mybers. If you decide you like us and you want to watch us age like a delicious liquid dairy product, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com because that means you're listening. Jason, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. I'm living a balanced life. I have an Apple Watch. I closed all my rings today, but I also ate 5 hot dogs for dinner.
Wait, hold up. What is... Whoa, that's a lot to unpack. What are rings? What are you talking about?
They're just the activity goals on Apple Watches. You've got a stand goal, a move goal, and a exercise goal.
Got it.
Nice.
So yeah, I closed the rings.
And you ate 5 hot dogs for dinner?
Yes.
I don't think like my fattest going through puberty give me all the food I ever ate 5 hot dogs in one go.
That's
with
like
buns?
It's not even
Were buns
the amount
included?
It's not even the amount. It's the fact that like after 3, I'd be like, I just need to eat something else. I don't want to eat another hot dog.
No,
Well,
I understand, but
like,
here's the thing:
the
they were
fat's
really,
also going to destroy like his pancreas, but
whatever.
They were listen. You're not listening. They were pigs in a blanket, so they were wrapped in cheesy
those are
biscuit.
delicious.
It's so hard.
Changes everything.
Because the thing is
Still,
Lauren.
5's a lot. That's a lot of volume.
I know, but listen to me. Hear me out. You know how normally a normal human would maybe chop a hot dog into 5 smaller pieces and then wrap cheese and biscuit around that? Lauren doesn't do that. Lauren gets full-size hot dogs and uses it as an entire croissant on one
that's
big
how my
giant
mom used
hot.
to make them growing up.
That's anything less is not worth my time.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. You do the little bite size, like the little Vienna sausage.
Yeah, if I want hors d'oeuvres for some social gathering, but if it's
but not
dinner,
dinner.
it's full hot dog and a full crescent roll with a slice of American cheese.
You know what happens when you do that? You eat 5 of them because they're
so
good.
I'm one to talk because I had an entire frozen pizza by myself yesterday. So
I had cheese and crackers for dinner today.
Because you're so like smart and good at life. I make such bad choices.
you just said you were living a balanced life.
Well, like I said, I did close my rings.
Yeah,
But
see?
anyway.
You get one. You get one hot dog for each ring, and you also start off with 2 hot dogs, so you hit 5. Perfect.
This is infallible logic. We can't
love
peek
that.
anymore. Let's go.
Okay, cool. Let's get into some housekeeping. Let's get the ball rolling. Like, sub, follow. We are at Never Free to Play on every social media platform, and especially Twitter, because Karch would really appreciate it. Sean's Messenger Part 4 video is up, and the reviews are in. People love it. Lots of people watch it. Crimson Karma, you are just a treasure. Thank you for
You're my
your
hero, Crimson
support.
Karma.
Amen.
As many of you will recall, we were supposed to release a group play video this week. However, when we tried, we just could not get the video and audio to record the way we needed to edit it and post. But I think we have figured out a solution. So I think that leads me into my next housekeeping bit, which is that we were supposed to do a solo video this week, but we decided we had so much fun playing as a group, and we were still able to get some of our solo videos out at a decent rhythm, even without dedicating the week to it, that we're going to do 2 group videos. So the schedule starting now is going to be podcast week 1 of the month, group video week 2, podcast group week 3, and group video week 4. So look forward to that.
Solo videos sprinkled throughout.
Yes.
Right, whenever
exactly.
I can get to it. Probably going to dump my Kingdom Hearts series. It's a lot of work.
You're really?
Yeah, I'm going to keep playing the games, but it's a lot of work. We'll see. We'll see.
So much work to make good content.
It is.
It's a lot easier just to do funny voices and play a video game. I'm telling you.
And I have an itch to do that, so we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. I mean, that's cool. And the thing is, you don't have to totally dump it. You can always go back and do it like really spread out if you ever wanted to.
Right.
It's on the shelf.
So.
Okay. All right. Good. Solo Week is dead. Let's talk about what we've been playing. And it's been 2 weeks, and here I thought last week was different, or last time was different because, we had new consoles. Of course, we've got a lot to talk about. Nope. 2 weeks is just a long time with a lot of room to play a lot of video games. So, Jason, why don't you start us off with what we've all been playing?
So yeah, as I alluded to, we did try a group Let's Play video this past week, and we got into some Stardew Valley.
Yeah,
so I took one for the team.
Wait, how?
But I enjoyed myself.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, you took one with your team having a lot of fun to where at the end you're like, we should keep playing this.
I know, like 10 seconds later, it's like, this is all I ever want to do.
I mean, I've said this before, but I'll reiterate it because the same was true for Stardew Valley. It's not a game I would want to play by myself, but it is a lot of fun to play with other people.
Did you feel like you learned anything this time?
No, I tried really hard.
Did you at least learn that Penny is mine?
I didn't, and it'll never stop me.
We're gonna get her.
I'm gonna take you down.
It's gonna
we have a little friendly
I'm gonna burn all your
competition.
crops.
I'm gonna download a foursome mod. That's what I'm gonna do. Polygamy mod. Sean,
Maybe tweet
was this your first time playing multiplayer, or have you done this with Katie before?
No, this is my first time playing multiplayer.
How'd you like it?
I really liked it. It's pretty much seamless. I am interested to see kind of like how there were a few things that were annoying. I went up and got stuck in the cutscene for the community center, that first part of the game, and it was funny because it was showing Jason's character because it's Jason's save file. But you guys were able to skip the cutscene, and I had to sit through the entire cutscene.
Somebody, you were the sacrifice.
Yeah, and so that isn't interesting because normally, like when those cutscenes play, it pauses time in the game. Obviously, that doesn't happen with multiplayer, so there is a little bit of like, a rush of things because the time, like in real life, marches onwards.
It does.
But all in all, I mean, it played great. Obviously, me with the weakest of computer, all this, it had no issues certainly playing Stardew Valley multiplayer. I had lots of fun.
I think on 3 occasions over like the 2-ish hours that we played, like did it skip at any point, which I assume was due to internet connectivity. Obviously not to actual resources required by the machine, but like my character skipped, like, or rather stuttered, and then like was maybe 4 steps ahead, and again that only happened like 3 times. Otherwise it was perfect.
Nice.
Oddly enough, you can hear sounds people make as long as you're in the same screen regardless of where you are, which I found very odd.
Yeah, it was funny to be like, and near the houses, which were the top right of the map, and then hear like Jason down in the southern part of the map chopping trees down, as clear as day. And be like,
yeah,
that's interesting because from someone who has no frame of reference, because I played this game a very small amount, but I was not wearing headphones. I just basically had the volume almost all the way down. That's something that never occurred to me.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting observation.
Yeah, otherwise, it's just Stardew Valley with 3 other people running around
friends.
with their own agency, which is really fun. And we're doing the shared money thing, so all our funds are the same. We weren't sure how backpacks work.
to making all of the money for us.
You will.
Oh, I was thinking about this for the backpack because I didn't check, but I wonder. No, we ended up looking it up online, didn't we? I was wondering maybe if I went and tried to like purchase the backpack, it would just give it to me. But no, we looked it up online and it doesn't share the backpack.
We all have to buy our own backpack.
Sucks because Karch got the backpack.
I did. It's fine. I'm going to go to the mines. I'm going to get our ore. I'll make good use out of the backpack until we all have it. All right. So, I've talked to this game to death. Sean, I'm same as well. Jason, do you have any additional thoughts before we move on?
No, just again, I'll kind of just rehash a little what I said when I played with Kane and Josh. They were both so good at the game and knew what they were doing, as were you guys. And so, like, I don't know. I felt a little pressured to try to make progress. But at the same time, I was learning. So it's self-imposed, but
sure. Pick a thing. So you need to. What do you want to do? And we'll tell you everything you need to know about how to do that one thing. Like an area. Whether it's, do you want to do the crops? Sure. Do you want to do the animals once we get some? Sure. Whatever you want to do. And then we'll show you how. And that could be your only responsibility.
Yeah, and we can fill in everything else.
Yeah. That'd be great, because I'm not a self-starter, so.
And then we will start you up.
Do it.
Now, there was also another game that we all played this in these past 2 weeks.
It's crazy. Like, this never
That I'm
happens.
very excited about.
It's my favorite game of all time.
You're also very good at it.
I am. I'm the best at it, actually. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's because I haven't got my video up yet, but we've all been playing just a little bit of... What is it, Sean?
Titanfall 2.
Yeah. I think Jason actually played the most, so let's hear his thoughts.
Oh, I hate to steal so many adjectives from how everyone describes Doom.
Sure.
But frenetic, just like fluid. I love the mechanics of Titanfall 2. And as anyone who has listened to the show knows, that's always what attracts me to the game first, because it's kind of like, that's how you interface with it. That's what you're doing. And it's what's not to love about Titanfall 2. I honestly, people might be upset by this opinion, but I almost like it more than Doom.
I was about to ask which one.
If I had to pick, Titanfall 2, honestly. I think part of it
there's
is
something just joyful about like pulling off that perfect wall run of like, all right, I gotta hit, and you've been through the time skip level, which has some great moments of like perfectly timed jumps and then shifting, kind of shifting the time and then landing on a thing that it feels such a fluid game to play.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What did you think about it, Karch?
I played very little, maybe 45 minutes, if I'm lucky. Like, I got into a Titan. I did like the Titan tutorial, and then
T7274.
Exactly. Did the Neuralink, and then that was pretty much it. And I tried to play a little bit more before we started, and that didn't work out. So, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm bad at it. I'm really, really bad at it. It's too fast for me. I couldn't turn the mouse sensitivity down any lower, and I was still like I know it's like a sin, especially with like mouse and keyboard, but like a lot of people, especially the pros, they jack it up to like as sensitive as possible. I cannot play like that. It drives me crazy. I might try it with a controller next. Usually, like when I play a first-person shooter on a PC, I don't have a problem with mouse and keyboard. I actually do technically prefer it. It's how I play Doom. And so, since you brought it up, Jason, you compared it, I'll compare it too. In my very brief time, and it's not necessarily fair because it was only 45 minutes versus the 10 plus I put into Doom, I definitely like Doom more. It speaks to me more the way, like, there's not a lot of melee in Doom. You can punch and chainsaw, obviously, but the shotguns, there's a lot of weapons that benefit from being up close. And while mobility and movement are a thing, and positioning is obviously important too, it's just not, they're not the same in that regard.
Yeah.
And I just don't think I'm ever going to be good at the Titanfall 2 traversal like I am, at least at my own skill level, in Doom. But it's fun, and I can't wait to play more. I'm going to try to beat the campaign for sure.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I just played some more multiplayer, and actually had some better luck than last time I've been playing. I shifted up my load order, and I'm actually using some different guns, which has been kind of nice and a different experience. But I've obviously talked Titanfall 2, up to the heavens and back. So I won't go off any there, but I'm glad you guys are enjoying it, and I look forward to, especially once you both are through the campaign, to talk about the campaign, because I do stand by that it's one of the best FPS campaigns I've ever played.
And that's the other thing, and I know what Doom is so good at is just dropping you in, and it's a game that's meant to be fun, and so the story is very, at least in the time that I spent with it, very loose. Like, it's almost like you could you totally ignore it and just play the game. It's very arcadey.
Yeah.
Whereas Titanfall 2, to me, it's a little less forgiving. It's a little less arcadey. It's a little more deliberate. But one thing I will say, I want to get Sean's opinion on this. I actually prefer the gameplay outside of the Titan more than inside of the Titan.
I am definitely a better pilot than I am a Titan. And that holds through whether it's single player or multiplayer. And yeah, I that joy of movement as a pilot, and then you get in a Titan and it becomes almost a little bit like a boots on the ground kind of old school, Call of Duty style first person shooter, just in a giant robot, but you're fighting other giant robots that are, and so I think the pilot combat and the pilot movement are much more enjoyable. But but and so to me, the Titan moments are really just like, okay, yep, we're up in the ante because things got serious. But I like that the campaigns has you spend the majority of your time as Cooper outside of BT.
Okay.
I totally agree.
That was about to ask, what's the division time, spread?
It's
between
probably,
the two?
with the exception of later in the game, it ups probably the Titan time a little bit more. For some because as things kind of hit their crescendo, you end up spending more time.
Yeah, that
with,
makes sense
with BT. But
narratively.
it's probably about it's like 2/3 pilot, 1/3 Titan.
Now, is it always okay? It's Titan time, or do you get like a choice? Like, okay, no, I'm gonna hop in the Titan in this scenario.
It's pretty much so. When you have to be a pilot, like the pilot stuff was very much you have to be a pilot. You have the option of essentially just of having BT control himself during the Titan moments and fighting also as a pilot.
Interesting. Okay.
And there's Jason. I think you got one more level and you'll come up on this level where it's a very Titan focus. And I actually spent a good chunk of that level outside of my Titan. Rodeoing, which is when you hop up on an enemy Titan and you rip out their battery or chuck like a grenade down, and so I'm able to do damage. And then BT was also fighting them and kind of keeping their attention. So I alternated in that part a lot between the two, which was a fun way to play. But you can also play that entire segment just in BT blasting through enemies.
Cool. Screw your messenger thing. I want to watch you play this, but not in multiplayer. I want to watch you play the campaign.
The campaign,
yeah, controlled.
And what's fun is as you'll unlock. And I mean, Jason, you should have already unlocked at least Tone. You unlock those additional kits, so you get different the different kind of loadouts and builds for BT, which all of those do have a different do change up your playstyle a little bit, which probably where the main bit of variety and kind of interesting gameplay comes for when you're the Titan.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, I can't wait to talk about this more.
I could play the campaign. That'd be pretty fun.
When you have time, don't go back to it just to go back to it. But yeah, like I remember when I started Doom, it took me a while. Like I remember I died immediately. Like outside of that room where the Doom guy wakes up, and it's like super easy. Like the first time you actually go outside, and you can see, like, I think you're on Mars, and so like you can see everything, and it's all messed up, and you fight like some enemies in a wide area. I died like 3 times, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? And it just took me a while because I don't play these games often, and I had to get into the groove, and so I have a feeling that's what's happening with Titanfall. As long as I don't, just drop it, that I'll get into it and I'll find my rhythm, and I may even bump the difficulty up from easy. We'll see.
Nice.
We'll see. Speaking of easy, that was a terrible transition, but I've been playing Bravely Default 2, which was not easy. Not even a little bit. But I beat it. So last time we talked,
Nice.
I was about halfway through, and then I just started to click. I was really like having a good time with it. Everything was feeling good. The story was progressing in a nice pace. I was unlocking fun jobs and battles, and now it just feels like ages ago. Like I don't even remember this game. Like it's a JRPG with a job system. Ta-da! It's exactly like I said. But for sure, so far, and probably for the rest of the year, because unless something new comes up that I'm not expecting to play and then I play it, this is easily my most pleasantly surprised game of the year. Like, I thought I wasn't going to get it, and then you guys tricked me into getting it by saying, go play the demo, and then I bought it. Like, thanks a lot.
We're so dastardly.
So dastardly. And then, I just ended up having a really good time, because even after I bought it, I was like, it's going to be fine. I probably won't finish it. And there was a moment where I thought that was true. And then, like I said, I got over the hump, and I was like, I'm all in. And I was. It took me about 42 hours, I think my clock said.
Oh my gosh.
That's not too bad. For a
No,
JRPG,
it's
I've
though.
Exactly.
never played a single. Oh my gosh, no.
Jason balking, Sean being like, that's pretty reasonable. And it is pretty reasonable,
For a
considering
JRPG, it's very reasonable.
Right, considering like that's still more than Final Fantasy VII Remake, for instance, but it's way, way less than Persona 5 Royal or Dragon Quest XI, which are just obscenely long, 100-hour games. So it was the perfect length. Anything longer, I would have probably just had to stop because I would have gotten bored. But it was good. Let's see here. So yeah, some. All right, I'm going to talk spoilers. So if, like, for some reason you're listening to this podcast and you want to play this game, stop listening, come back in, like, I don't know, 10 minutes, because I can't imagine I'm talking.
10 minutes.
Just to be safe. Just to be safe. Because,
Okay.
again, Anyway, all right, 5 minutes, fine. Like, whatever. Or, listen at your own risk.
If I have to listen to you talk about this for 10 more minutes, I'm gonna take a break.
I
But
look
go ahead.
forward to our new Karch JRPG overlords.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, this is what happens, or this is the kind of behavior I expect from someone who doesn't want to get fired from the podcast.
Come back in 30 minutes, guys.
Oh my gosh. Anyway,
I'll put a
there's-
timestamp or something on the video for when to come back.
Without getting too into it, the first game plays with your perception of like doing what the game tells you to, and what is an ending, and like the ability to choose, like outside of what you typically expect from a JRPG. And so at near the, or at least what you think is the end of this one, you can see that they're trying to do that again. So I guess that's going to be this series legacy. They're going to play with your expectations. But rather than making it a choice, it's more of a just multiple ending situation. So you have to experience them all. And so you get to the first ending and the credits roll, and it's bad. It's sad, and there's a lot of emotional weight to it, but you can just tell, like, that's not how this game's supposed to end. That boss fight was too easy, and this is too sad for a game like this. And so you go through, and you start up, and, like, it turns out that the characters were seeing the future. And they're like, well, I guess we gotta do it. Except you can just go in the other direction. If you do, they're like, no, I'm not doing that. And then you go do a bunch of other stuff, and you get maybe like a couple more hours in, and then you get another ending on a harder boss. And then another similar end, as far as like the style of the ending. It's very sad. It's a different female character, basically has to say goodbye. The first one dies. She literally sacrifices herself. The other one sacrifices herself in a way. She doesn't die, but basically they're never going to see her again. And so in each of those situations, one of the female characters is saying goodbye, and their male counterpart who loves them is being like, no. And again, so they're like really emotional, and it's like we have to stop this. And again, same thing. You come back after the credits roll, and the characters are like, whoa, another future, whatever. And so you finally go do the final set of criteria. None of these criteria are like crazy. It just literally adds a couple more hours to the game. So at this point, I'm at like, 30, 35. And then so it just adds another couple hours at that point. And then you do the final one, and you do the final boss. And I had a pretty broken build as far as like my jobs and abilities and so forth went. Basically, what happened was I had maxed out this one job that increases the attack power based on a stat that determines whether you're being targeted. So, like, your chance to be targeted, if that is high, your attack is high. And so basically just slap on all the armor, you put on all the big weapons, and your attack just goes through the roof. I'm breaking the 9,999 damage barrier, and, like, nothing can stop me. And then the last boss is just the worst kind of boss. Everything it does is a counter. Like, literally everything it does counters everything you do. You healed yourself? I'm going to take away your brave points. You used an item? Going to take away your brave points. You attacked me? No, you didn't, because I dodged it, because that's my counter. The counter is just dodge the attack. It's these kinds of things. And so despite how strong I was just barely hanging on by a thread. And then the boss ran out of MP. They could no longer use their abilities, which is insane, because that never happens. Because it's usually just not built into it mechanically.
You outlasted the boss.
I outlasted the boss. And it was awesome. Like, it even like
insane.
says on the screen, like, not enough MP to use ability. And like, so all it could do was its measly like physical attack, which could never kill me in like one shot. So I would always be able to heal myself up, and I had abilities that would eventually restore my mana. So I was golden at that point. It still took forever because, again, I don't know if the characters or the class or the weapons like just had really low accuracy, but I couldn't hit them after a certain point, and it was really lame. But then you beat the boss, and then the main character dies, but then the crystal revives him, and it's a happy ending, and it's just really sweet. And the music is just stellar. I love the music. It's not as varied maybe as you might find in Final Fantasy VII. There's not nearly as many tracks, but the themes for the characters are excellent. And yeah, it was a really good game. I really liked it. I will not be going back to max out the jobs and fight the extra post-game bosses and that kind of stuff, because if they're worse than the final boss, then I have no desire to play those at all. But yeah, this is a really good game. It's a little messy. Like, it just can't quite tell what it wants to do. It accomplishes very little narratively in 40 hours, which is like, what have I been doing this whole time? And yet at the same time, it feels like a lot happened. So it's this weird kind of like, this is good, but it's also bad kind of situation. I guess I just spent a lot of time fighting, and because the fighting and the leveling feels so good, it doesn't feel like it took that long.
So like solid mechanics, but not great narrative.
No, but the characters are excellent, and some really top-notch voice acting. I wish this game looked better. And not like a lot better, but just, I wish this game looked like it belonged on the Switch instead of like an upscaled 3DS game. And it's just such a shame that it looks and runs so poorly. Like, it's just a shame. That's all. Like I said, like really good characters, really well acted, and then they look like puppet dolls, but not in like a intentional way. Like this is as good as we can do it, and you're lucky it got this good. So, last thing I'll say is that the JRPGs. This is a general call out to JRPGs. Stop letting me name the main protagonist. It is stupid, and it doesn't work. You can't give my character a personality, a voice, and give me no choice over how they act, but then never say their name. Like, there's this, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I gotta talk about this. So, at the end, the boss is themed around, like, they're like this eternal evil, and they persist because all of their memories and their knowledge are written in this book that you've been carrying with you this whole time. You don't realize that that's what it is, but eventually you find out. And so at some point, like, you finally face the final form of this boss, the Knight's Nexus, and it's like everyone start like it's like this huge wave of amnesia. Nobody remembers who they are. They've lost their will to fight, except the main character. And he's like, one by one, you select this option to like remember who you are. And it's just really cool, totally anime moment where they're like, yes, I am this person. They say their name and like, and I'm this, and then you're like, and I'm going to do this thing. Like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And you do that one by one. And then once you bring your teammates back, the main character forgets who they are. And like, there's this, like, you enter this silent void. And then the menu for the game pops up. And I'm getting chills talking about it. And if you'll remember, you have the mechanic to Brave, which is where you can, use up these points to do extra moves. And you press it. And then you press it again. And each time you press it, normally, the menu starts to overlay with another option showing you like, oh, you have 2 more times to use it, and then you press it, and you just keep pressing it, and it just keeps like, tilating scale. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it just spreads out all over the screen like solitaire. Like I just beat
like cascading out the menus.
Exactly, and it's like you've braved out the maximum, and then he has that moment. Except he doesn't have a name. They refer to him as you, and he refers to him as and it's just like it loses so much of the punch. Instead of saying like, like, what if you're watching Gladiator and Russell Crowe's character, whose name I forget, but he says his name, Marcus Aurelius, the blah blah blah, and I am this. Like, if he couldn't say that moment means nothing, and that's kind of what happened. And I hate it, and all for this stupid idea of like, you're the character, it's you're the hero. And I just hate it. So stop.
That actually makes me think how one of the things that I never saw a lot of discussion on when Breath of the Wild came out was the fact that was, as far as I can remember, the first Zelda game where he had to be called Link. You had no option to change his name like you could in the earlier ones. And even though he doesn't talk, it goes such a long way. It does. Well, and then the fact, because it's the first Zelda with actual voice acting for Zelda to have her saying his name and all that was added weight to those moments.
Exactly, like, because you don't get to choose who Link is. You don't get to.
Right.
There is no role playing, so don't try to pretend like there is. And that's it. I don't want to. I'll just rant forever on this because I hate it, because they do it in Dragon Quest and they do it in Persona, and they even do it in Mass Effect to a much smaller degree because you're always shepherd.
Final Fantasy does it.
Final Fantasy does it, but like even that works because in Final Fantasy, except for 10, there's no voice acting. And so they get the characters can say your name.
True,
and
that's true.
All of that still works. In Final Fantasy X, it still works because, again, the yous and all that stuff, and Titus speaks a lot, personally in the first person because he's talking. So it doesn't feel as bad as it does in this game. But yeah, anyway, I really liked it. I'm glad it's over though, because now I can play Monster Hunter, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But Jason, what else have you been playing?
Well, I think we should hear from Sean.
Oh,
I talked
right.
about two
Sean,
games.
what have you been playing?
So actually, I got back into playing Astroneer. I wasn't feeling too good. Earlier in this week, I think my sinuses flared up. And so I just wanted something that I could just kind of lay on the couch in the evening, and it wasn't going to be difficult that I could pound away at. And so I actually downloaded Astroneer on my Series S so I could play it down in the living room. The first thing I'll say about that is holy crap, because if you guys remember that one time I played Astroneer, like that game takes, at least on my Xbox One, so maybe it wasn't an issue for you guys on your PCs, but it takes several minutes to load the game. And then it takes several minutes to load your save file. My Series S loaded the game in like 10 seconds, loaded my save file in like 10-15 seconds. It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember because I played it once.
I will say, which was doubly good because Quick Resume did not work for that game. If I exit out of the game, it exited the game and I had to relaunch the game. And whether that's because the whole way had to track physics and it was too much for it to kind of pause, I don't know. But whatever, it loaded up quick, so it didn't matter. We never got to it, but you eventually you can go to moons and other planets in the solar system. And if you guys recall, we found that one the alien artifact that we had to power up.
Yeah.
Well, each planet has several of those, depending upon whether it varies whether the number, whether it's a moon or a planet. And then at the core of the planet, there's one that it only allows you to access it once you open at least one of the ones on the surface. And when you open those core ones, and they require like each one requires a different resource to open. It then allows you to go to this like alien space station above the sun. And so eventually you can use those to instantly basically teleport from planet to planet.
Awesome.
But also once you unlock that space station, if you bring the resource that unlocked the core area and you put all of them in, basically a giant portal opens up and it kind of reveals that your Astroneer has been traveling from galaxy to galaxy by unlocking these portals. And there's a little ending cutscene that kind of throws a loop and then credits roll. So I rolled credits on Astroneer.
Congratulations.
That's impressive.
Which I didn't fully expect the game to have, those, Minecraft and whatnot. I mean, I guess even Minecraft technically does have it when you defeat the end and the Ender Dragon. But I rolled credits. I got every achievement in that game except for 2. One of which is get every other achievement, and then the one that I'm actually missing is I need to research like one of the things you got the bytes from in someone else's game. So I need to get someone to play this game with me so I can research something, and I'll have it'll be a game that I will have gotten all the achievements on.
I'm gonna use it as a like bargaining chip. Like, all right, I'll do this for you, but you got to do this for me. Do you know? The planet that we were playing on, the planet you start on, or moon, or is it always the same, or is there like a randomness to this?
There is a randomness to it. So like each time, like when you load up a new game, it procedurally generates all those planets. So like you'll load, the planets will not be identical to one another from save file to save file.
Cool. Can you do like? Is it like seeded like Minecraft is?
I don't know if you can put a seed in.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It'd be cool if you
could.
Into that. Just curious.
But yeah, so, and I talked about going to the center of the planet. That is difficult because as you get further into the planet and also as you get to the more advanced planets in the game, a lot more of those planet hazards show up. You start running into things that can like shoot at you and or can be a really pain in the butt. And so the safest way is to get a rover and go down on a rover. And so I had built like a small rover, which could put like a tool on the front. So you could put like a drill and drill down to the ground. But eventually the planets get pretty hollow. And so I found there's an item called a paver. So essentially, I would drill until I came into a cavern. I would then like get out of my rover, swap out my drill, put on my rover, my paver, pave my way back to the ground, swap out tools. Well, for the last planet, which is the hardest planet, I finally built a large rover, which I hadn't done before because it takes up like half of my storage space that my rocket could carry, and so it really limited how much stuff I could do, or I'd have to do multiple trips. And I was like, it's last planet, it'll be useful. Well, I found out when you do that, you can put the drill and the rover on the front at the same time and run them, and it'll alternate depending upon whether you're drilling or. So I basically just like put them both on, hit go, pointed my rover downwards, and then drilled my way all the way and paved my way all the way to the center of the planet and got there in like 2 minutes. If I see like 10-minute escapade of swapping things out and meticulously trying to do this, and I was like, well, that made this easy mode. And I wish I had decided to do it sooner because it would have made my life a lot easier. But that was part of the fun of that game too is just like solving the little problems. Like Aatrox is very craggy in a bunch of valleys, and it's a pain in the butt to take the rover. So what did I do is I had my character hold the winch and hooked my winch up to a platform with all the power generating things I would need to unlock the alien artifacts, because as you get to the more difficult planets, you need more power. And then I put a jetpack on and I just flew around. I was like,
Nice.
problem solved. So it was
That is really nice.
It was a fun little experience. I rolled credits on Karch 30th. And then on Karch 31st, they dropped a big update to the game that added like missions and more power generating things and overhauled the whole power generation and power consumption stats in the game. So I was like, well, thanks guys. Wish I had seen that was coming sooner, because I don't intend to go back and play the game except for that brief if I want to grab those last 2 achievements. But it is. I mean, it is a game I'll have to keep an eye on, because if they start adding some more interesting things, it may be worth going back and playing some more, because it is a very fun and soothing game to play.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like I loved it a lot, and then I just didn't know how much there was to do beyond, like, multiple planets, etc. How much you've described. This is, hold on, I have them up right here. System Era Softworks.
Yep.
Totally indie. Published by them, self-published and all that. They did an early access stint, etc. This came out in 2016, like January or something like that. Maybe even before.
And it's interesting hearing like the early versions where there was like deadly weather, like wind could sit there and like and disrupt your construction, and they've toned that down and made it, I think, a little bit more friendly, minus
right.
the plants that can harm you. But like I said, it's just fun. It is. I mean, basically every planet is go to this planet, unlock a surface one, go down to the core, unlock that, figure out the material it needs, come back, craft the material, and then go down and put it in. So you kind of do the same thing on every planet, but the aspect of bringing the proper gear there and solving that problem, and then building a base, because I think last time I talked about the automation, and so going in this playthrough, having to still finish about half the planets from last time I was playing it. I overhauled my base and put in a bunch of automation. So like now I land back at my main base on Silva, the Earth-like planet, and I offload my storage containers, and these auto arms will pull everything off the storage and put the ones that need to go through the smelter, and then like load them into the resource canners. So everything's nice and organized, and I basically just have to move one thing and it offloads everything for me, and it's kind of fun.
Awesome. Well,
It sounds like you mastered.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You sounds like you mastered that game.
I like that game. It's fun.
A couple of things that, like, based on that, when I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, games that I either thought you would like or wanted to know if you ever played. No Man's Sky. Have you ever played it?
I have not played No Man's Sky.
Just based on Astroneer and what I know of No Man's Sky, I've seen played.
But No Man's Sky, I don't think ever came to Xbox, right? It was like a PC, PlayStation game, I think.
That's a really good question. I'm not sure.
I did download, was it Elite Dangerous is the other kind of like big space exploring one. I downloaded that on the Xbox. I haven't gotten around to play. I downloaded that and whatchamacallit, BioWare, Anthem on the same day, and I played. I haven't gone back to Anthem yet.
Nice.
But I did download that. I just haven't gotten around to playing it yet.
What about Factorio? The way that you describe having to like build these little mini machine centers to help you process your materials. To me, that screams like Factorio.
I know the name. I don't actually know what that game's about.
Well,
I'll have to check that out.
It's kind of more. I mean, it might be closer to something like SimCity, but with the premise of you have to do all of these things to get from like the Mars back to Earth or whatever.
Oh, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, but it's like it has. I've never played it, but I just looked at some screenshots. It looks more like an RTS, like top down SimCity type of thing than
yeah, I'll check it out. Maybe maybe it'll be my game after my side game after the Messenger, and maybe I'll do some videos of me playing that.
Yeah, check it out. I've had it recommended to me, and then Valheim is new too, and Josh and Kane say that's really good. It's kind of,
I would like to play Valheim. I'm just fairly confident my laptop's not going to be able to handle it, and so I got to wait for it to come to consoles.
Gotcha. Sure. Yeah, I think I'll be checking it out with Josh and Kane shortly. So
yeah, let me know, because I am interested. It sounds almost like a Viking medieval fantasy version of Astroneer in some ways.
Maybe,
yeah, it does,
with a little bit more of a survival aspect.
Sure,
yeah,
which brings
survival's
into
pretty heavy. It sounds like
the Deep Rock a little bit, Deep Rock Galactic a little bit. Yeah, so.
Not only is No Man's Sky on Xbox, it's on Game Pass as well. So check it out,
really?
man.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Because I played it when it launched, and I've talked about this before, but it didn't click with me like I thought it was going to, but not because of all the crazy drama that was surrounding its launch. But it is a totally different game that I'm sure I wouldn't recognize but it definitely sounds up your alley. And obviously now it's free.
Yeah,
so.
I've enjoyed following the news on that game and
Mm-hmm.
just the sheer amount of content that they've come back and added to that game from almost kind of meeting now what they originally promised the game was going to be. So I'll maybe square some time away and get those in my secondary game slot, because I gotta play some Monster Hunter here world here soon to figure out if I like Monster Hunter, and if I do, then I'm probably going to join Karch and playing one of the other games I know he's played, which is Monster Hunter Rise, and then if I don't, then it's on the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Both of those options are good, and I'm torn at which one to push you towards. All right, is that all you played though?
That's all I played. Besides playing some more Messenger. I got part 5 recorded actually about 2 hours before we started recording the podcast. So I'll get that edited up this weekend when I'm also editing the podcast, and I'll have another Messenger video up next week.
Cool. Jason, what else you been playing?
Well, I briefly tested some indies out with Greg on Game Pass. I did like literally maybe 20 minutes of each of these: Cyber Shadow, Prison Architect, and City Skylines. And I won't go into detail on it, but it just another shout out to Game Pass, because it's pretty cool to be able to try those. Because those are 3 games, with the exception of Cyber Shadow. I might have purchased Cyber Shadow, but Prison Architect and City Skylines probably not something I would have actually bought. But Cyber Shadow maybe, but I ended up trying it out and not loving it. So that was one that's published by the same people who did Shovel Knight.
Yeah, Yacht Club
Games. They did
So
not
City
make
Skylines
it, but they published it.
That's like a SimCity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, City Skylines is, yeah. I mean, and we could talk about that more if you want, but I was just Cyber Shadow. Thing I didn't like about it, it's got a very NES aesthetic, which is fine. It's just not. I prefer Super Nintendo to like that true 8-bit. But along with that, some of it is embedded. The mechanics, for instance, like you can't duck. You're just kind of stuck standing going through this thing. And there was
why is that a problem?
Why is it a problem? I don't know. It limits you. So I feel like it limits you because there are a lot of things, that trajectory sort of things that you have to like duck. What do you call those?
You can't duck.
Blanking
though.
up. Huh?
You can't duck though.
Exactly.
No, what I'm saying is like, why have you decided that ducking is necessary instead of saying the game doesn't let me duck, let me figure out how else to play the game?
I don't know. It just feels like you're just. It feels very stiff.
Does it feel like ducking should be a feature, and it almost is like it's
weird. Ducking is as old as time when it comes like even Mario could duck, so it's odd for sure, which makes it sound even more intentional.
Somebody fact check me on that.
Don't fact. Jason never actually pressed down on the D-pad.
I did. I think I knew there were 2 things that I didn't like about it, but I forgot to write it down, and I'm pretty sure one of them is that you couldn't duck.
He's just besmirching the good name of Cyber Shadow for completely the wrong reason.
I didn't love it, and I love platformers,
I know.
and I didn't love it. Anyway, so I did that just and in Prison Architect couldn't figure it out for the life of me. Like I had it booted up. It was telling me to build a wall, but it is the weirdest thing. It is nothing like I thought it would be.
Very American.
I'm so frustrated with Prison Architect because I wanted it to be that game that you always play as a kid on pen and paper, where you draw a fortress that nothing could penetrate in or out. So like it's kind of revert. Well, I always built it like a fortress, and then you would like, okay, it's got a moat, it's got like a barbed wire fence, it's got attack dogs, it's got tanks. It's almost like tower defense
dogs
game,
and
right?
bees, and the dogs that when they bark, they shoot bees from their mouth.
So you build that in your head of like, okay, this is like what the best, coolest thing would be. Think about it in reverse. In my mind, Prison Architect is you would like construct a prison, then put prisoners in, and then see if they could escape. I mean, you're a prison architect. But that's not how it works exactly. It's more like a city builder, and you start out with half a prison already like built for you, and you're just like upgrading it. Maybe I was just in the tutorial section, and that's why this was, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to do it, and I was frustrated because like bad things were happening on the map that I know I was supposed to be building stuff to prevent, or like deploying guards and doing all this other stuff, but I was so stuck on just trying to learn how to do anything in the game.
Yeah, it sounds like it lacked an effective tutorial.
Yeah, probably. And if I had watched a couple of videos on it or something, maybe pick it up, and maybe it is the game that I think it is. But it was frustrated with the fact that you just kind of started with half a prison. So anyway, did that briefly. Tested out remote play with the new controller clip that Karch got me for Christmas, which is awesome.
Nice.
I ended up installing Moonlight on my phone, and then there is a way that you can add a shortcut into NVIDIA GeForce Experience that basically just tells the program opens and it tells you to display the desktop, and so you can use that as a loophole to remote play your desktop via Moonlight instead of only playing the games that are available within GeForce Experience, because not all games can be added there. And especially Game Pass games, because the way that it's the whole thing, the way that PC saves your Game Pass games is in kind of this coded, encrypted folder when you can't find the exact save path of where the download files are for the specific games. And so you can't point GeForce Experience to that folder. And therefore you can't add all games to GeForce Experience, and then they won't go on Moonlight.
Does Game Pass not? So like my Xbox at this point, it defaults to saving all of my games to the cloud, my save files to the cloud. So Game Pass doesn't do that on the computer.
Well, that's not what I was saying. I was saying the way that it works is like if you install a game in Steam, then you need to navigate to the executable for a game. You would just follow the file path. Steam, games, game name. Xbox doesn't do that. It kind of clumps it all. Yeah, it clumps it all into like one thing that you can't unpack. And so like the way Moonlight works is it tricks NVIDIA GeForce Experience into thinking that your device is a NVIDIA Shield tablet.
Okay.
So everything that you can play on Moonlight is basically anything that's in GeForce Experience, which can get games from the Epic Game Stores. It can get games from Steam and other clients.
I got you.
But Game Pass is a little bit of a different animal, because if it doesn't pick it up automatically, that means you have to manually add it. So anyway, this is a loophole within Moonlight to where you can just remote play your desktop, and then via that you can play anything in there. Because I couldn't get Dexter to work. Anyway, point is, works great. Love it. Played a little bit of Dead Cells in my bed. I did it with AirPod Pros in my ears, and it was awesome, because the last time I tried to do this with Bluetooth headphones was actually remote playing from my PS4 to my laptop using Bluetooth headphones, and there was a giant audio delay, and it just ruined everything. This was flawless. This is the future, and I loved it.
Cool. What are you going to play in bed? What are you going to do?
I don't know. I think I want to power through Titanfall too, and because I love it. I'm a little afraid it won't be as good of an experience because it's such a Twitch kind of game, and
that's a tiny screen too to be
trying
to play
I'm
that
playing
game
with mouse and keyboard, and then I'll have to switch between controller and mouse and keyboard, which means I'll have to relearn it. But I'm already so late in the game, so. Don't know exactly, but that's a candidate. Also,
if you do go to controller, either put your paddles on or go to bumper jumper.
Okay.
Well, make sure move your jump from a button to, I think there's one of the default control setups puts it on the left bumper, because you need to be able to have both thumbs on sticks while jumping. That's
a good point. Well, I probably won't do it, to be honest with you, because I don't want to have to relearn it. So I'm looking for RPGs, but yeah. And I want to also just briefly say I've been playing a little bit of Final Fantasy VII. I've got my next video recorded. I'll be editing that probably this weekend. And then Tyler and I played some Sniper Elite 4 last night, and it is amazing. It's like multiplayer Hitman. It's a cover shooter, but you're a sniper. And so basically you're just trying to stealth and use your binoculars, work with your teammate, communicate. You are staked out on the outside of like bases, and it's a sandbox, and you're just like, use your binoculars, mark people, take shots. There's a mechanic in that game where other military planes will fly by, and then you have sound cover, so you can take a shot without anybody hearing. But if you do shoot, they can hear you, and they will mark you on the map. It gives you a red diamond. That's the last known location where you were known to the enemy, and that shows up on your map. and then you can kind of work to regain stealth. Once you cool down the situation a little bit. And so also has a really awesome cutscene animation where it shows like the bullet going through an X-ray character model, so you can see exactly where you shot.
I'm looking at it right now. It's pretty funny.
Have you
very
gotten
Mortal
the testicle
Kombat
shot yet?
Say what?
There's a testicle shot version of that.
Is there?
You can shoot him through the
I have
testicle.
not done it yet. I guess I'm not as sick as you, Sean.
Have you played it, Sean?
I watched Achievement Hunter play it.
Gotcha.
It's good, man. And I found it for $11 last night.
Friend of the show, Achievement Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love those guys.
But yeah, no, it's awesome. It's every bit worth $11, and it's everything Tyler and I loved about those sequences in Far Cry 5, except for that's the entire game.
Yeah.
So-
It looks good.
Have you,
It looks like
killed
something I'd
Hitler
play.
yet?
No, we literally only played one mission
Oh, okay.
last night, but it was cool. And like I said, the shooting mechanics are very much for a sniper, and so you have a lot of really cool I don't want to call them mini games, but these little meta games you could play with the way that you aim, strategically holding your breath. When you hold your breath, you get a secondary diamond within your scope that shows you exactly where your shot's going to shoot, but as you run out of breath, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappears. So if you have to be really strategic with your breath, really strategic with where you scope, when you fire, based on getting sound cover, not getting sound cover, how visible are you to the enemy, all sorts of things. Meanwhile, you're tagging other enemies and trying to make sure that you don't alert one by killing the other, or you can just sneak up on it and go melee. So it's really cool game. And if you can find it for the deal like I did for $11, totally worth it.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, I vaguely feel like I've heard the Easy Allies, one of the allies talk about this before, but like, Sniper Elite 4, I never heard of it before that, though. Where are these other three? Like, what's this game doing that it's doing so right?
Yeah.
Doing so right to get 4 games out, but doing so wrong that I've never, as someone who just knows a lot of video games, even who doesn't play them all, I never heard of it.
I think it's because it's such a basic name. That's
Maybe
you're like,
it is. It is does not stick in the memory. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, Karch. This is the crowning achievement of new gaming and having hot takes.
That's
Great
right.
timing, because Monster Hunter came out when?
Less than a week ago. It came out on Friday last week.
And what platform, for the people who don't know?
Nintendo Switch only, coming to PC later, probably like a year. I think it's a year exclusivity.
Nice.
Which is a similar thing that happened to World. Unfortunately, it doesn't. If it's following anything like World, there won't be like crossplay or progression or anything like that. The PC version kind of started from the baseline, and then they maybe at a quicker rate added the like extra content, not DLC. Yeah, I guess DLC, whatever you want to call it. And then eventually it got the expansion Iceborne as well. But if you want to play it right now, get it on the Switch.
Monster Hunter Rise.
Monster Hunter Rise. It is so much fun. And it's hard to talk about this game to someone who's never played a Monster Hunter. So I won't really. Like, I'm not going to...
Well, luckily, I'm very experienced in Monster Hunter.
So experienced. I'll explain the basics of Monster Hunter. You get a big old weapon, usually, and you go fight big old monsters. And you carve up their parts, and you make armor out of them. You make weapons out of them. It is a great premise. And then you do it again. And again, 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 until you've killed them all and you're done.
Till the RNG gods smile upon you.
Exactly. And for the most part, the RNG doesn't become a factor till the very end game. And you want to be the best of the best. Otherwise, you kill the monster 2 or 3 times, you're going to have all the pieces you need to make that piece of armor or weapon. But there's also a huge history and multiplayer component where you can join up with up to 3 other hunters for a total of 4 people on one hunt. And you just all gang up on that monster. And it's always a lot of fun when people with various weapons are doing their best, getting flung and flying themselves and smacking monsters. And everybody, different weapons have different strengths. So it's nice to have those, like I'm a hammer guy, and hammers are big, heavy. That you go for the head, and you go for the legs, and you try to knock that monster on its butt. And every monster can get knocked out and knocked over. And then everybody can wail on it, and that's what the hammer is good at. And but I can't cut, so I can't cut the tail off, and the tail is often a very vital part of any particular crafting thing. And so, that the multiplayer is fun, but it's also really useful, but not necessary. You can play this whole game by itself.
Question for you, Karch.
Yeah.
How do they scale difficulty with as you have more than
monster
one hunter?
Monster health is the only thing that I'm aware of that scales. I don't think the damage goes up because even by yourself, monster hits you, and if you don't have like top notch, defense oriented armor, you're still going to lose like a third of your health, even at the lower levels. So yeah, for the most part, it's just monster health. So if you've got 4 people, and I think this. So in the past, what it's done is if you had any more than one, it had the health for 4 players. And then World did something a little different, and I think Rise is the first one to actually scale for every person that's there. So if you got 2, it doubles, 3 triples, or whatever the scaling is. It counts for that. So that's kind of cool. And
That's
found
really
that
nice.
Yeah, it is. And I found that so far no hunts are taking too long. I don't feel like anything has too much health. There was one I accidentally joined a multiplayer hunt, but I did it by myself. And so I was wondering, why is this taking so long? And then I realized at the end, I was like, oh, whoops. So
was your team just off somewhere else, or you didn't get it didn't matchmake?
So the game it's always kind of done this, but I'm really not that much of an expert. I played a lot of one of the 3DS ones. I played a decent amount, not too much of World, relatively anyway. So I've only ever played 2 of these games, and there's 7 of them. But you can always play a lot of it by yourself, but it's always designed around the multiplayer, especially the end game content, they call it high rank. For the first time, though, they've divided it. And so you have these things called village quests, and those are very specifically, these are for you in your single player offline mode. And it's kind of like 2 stories happening simultaneously, 2 paths happening simultaneously, where you fight kind of the same monsters on one, kind of the same on the other, but slightly different. And so the other ones are hub quests. And what I did is I joined a hub quest, but I didn't turn my online on, so nobody could join me. And so that's what happened. But yeah, so hub quests are basically, again, the multiplayer ones. So you can do 2 things. You can start your own hub and invite up to 3 other people to join your session. That can be randoms, but that's also what you would do if you have, if you guys were going to join me, we would start a thing, and you guys would come to the village, and we'd all be in the same village at the same time, and then we would go on the hunts together. Or you can do a kind of an ad hoc thing where I can start a quest, and I can say, hey, I want to start this quest, and anybody who else is looking can join me whenever. I'm not creating a session per se, but this hunt is open for others to join. And then other people can go to their board and be like, look, I want to find a one that's in play right now. And then, I'll start the hunt out, and then maybe right away all 4 people show up, or maybe over the course of 5 minutes, 4 people show up. But eventually at least 2 or 3 do. And then, you just go at it. But it's seamless. That's it. That's just no cutscenes like World had. I mean, there are cutscenes, but no weird requirements, no bizarre stuff.
That's what I was going to ask. Does it seem pretty easy to, if we wanted to play together, to get into a game? Because I remember it was a little bit difficult doing Monster Hunter World. It took us probably, 30, 45 minutes from the time we booted up to when we were actually in a game together. And then it was really hard to join the same quest.
No, it'd be pretty easy. I might have to do your lower quests for a little while. I don't know if you'd be able to join some of the higher ones. And you wouldn't want to necessarily, because you wouldn't be at that hunter rank yet, but it would be much easier. Maybe 20 minutes the most for you guys to just kind of get through some of the tutorial stuff.
Well, remember, we weren't even in the same hub world.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I really feel like it would be way, way easier. I just don't think it would be that difficult.
And how much time did you say you might need to play before you could actually get going on?
Maybe 20 minutes. It's fuzzy in my memory how long.
Yeah, that's not bad at all, though.
Yeah, but if you'll remember from World, Jason, there was this whole to do about starting, and there was basically a tutorial scenario. Where in this, they just drop you in the village, and it's a tutorial of sorts, but it's basically just the first level. They just get you going. Speaking of tutorial, it's heavy. this is a steep entry for anybody who's just like, I just want to check out Monster Hunter. No, you don't just check out Monster Hunter. Know that this is antiquated. Like the way they do things is the way they've always done things. And yes, they've made a lot of quality of life improvements over the years, but that's from the perspective of somebody who's been playing the whole time or is familiar with how they used to. If you're coming into this game thinking like a Jason, you're probably going to have a bad time. So know that there's going to be a lot of dumb text boxes on screen. And you can skip most of them once you figure out how to take the quest and use your weapon. Like, there are certain things you have to know, but then you can learn everything else at your own pace. And again, I'm just describing Monster Hunter at this point, so I'm going to move on to what's new about Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah. So it's on the Switch, and that's awesome. And it runs flawlessly. I have had zero, what I can tell anyway, and sometimes things are chaotic, so who knows, but I've had zero drops in FPS. You know, I don't have weird graphical issues with like, what do you call it, pop-in, or what's the thing when you're looking at stuff far away?
Render, draw distance.
Viewing distance.
Yeah, view and draw distance are fine. Like, the levels are definitely smaller, but that's fine. Like, this is a handheld game, basically. You know, yeah, you can play it on your TV, but they designed this kind of like they designed their older ones, but with some of the niceties. So there's no, like, screens between sections. It's all one open world, just like World was, which was the first time they did that. And,
nice.
And like, it's just, you know, it's easy to memorize a map. It doesn't take more than, like, 2 or 3, like, hunts to... You know, you got to spend some time going to some of the nooks and crannies to be like, okay, this is the quickest path here, and that's the quickest path there, and don't go that way because it's the wrong way, those kinds of things. But I've already encountered like 4 or 5 maps, and they're all very different. You know, you got your shrine ruins, which is like a very old forest with bamboo and lots of dilapidated like ruins. Very, very heavy Japanese aesthetic always, but especially in this one. And I'm loving every minute of it. So they added 2 huge things. 2 biggest new things are wire bugs and palamutes. Palamutes. So you've always had the little cat friends. They're called palicos. And they're little cats. They're sentient. They can talk and stuff. They only meow in the game. They don't have like voices, but they do talk to you. And they're always in the village, and some of them are blacksmiths, and some of them are chefs, and some of them are quest givers and that stuff, but you always have one as your friend, and you can build him armor and stuff, and he always has like little abilities, like he can drop a health potion essentially, or like if you get knocked out or sleepy or something, he'll kick you awake or you know, slap you out of it, that kind of stuff. And he does little like chip damage the whole time. Well, they added a dog, and the dog is just the best. And you can take a cat and a dog with you, or you can take 2 cats or 2 dogs. And the dog you can ride, and oh, it's so much fun to just hop on that sucker from the get-go, and it's so great. And the dog can drift. All my Mario Karting has paid off. The dog can drift. And he gets a speed boost after the drift, just like in Mario Kart. And so it's so much fun.
I can't wait for the dog race DLC.
Me too. That's gonna be awesome. That would actually not be like the worst idea. Or, you know, I bet people are gonna make up their own little mini games. Where like, hey, let's race to the end of this thing, and like we do when we're kids and stuff. But he can run up, you know, not every wall because there's a lot of verticality because of the wire bugs, which I'll talk about in a sec. But the dog can run up vines, so you don't have to get off your dog and climb up the vines and then get back on your dog. And he's always there. Like the only time he's not ready for you is when like he's in the middle of a fight or he's distracted by like a smaller monster. But you can call him and be like, hey, stop that, come to me. Let me hop on you and let's go. You can use items. And so weapon sharpness is a stat that degrades over time as you attack a monster. And you got to sharpen your weapon to get it back up to, you know, the top level in the middle of a fight. Monsters often, there are phases and they run away and you got to chase them. Well, while you're on your palico, you can just sharpen your weapon. So you're cutting down time. So it's just this beautiful quality of life. It's like, oh, who knew this was missing? We didn't, but we're so glad that the palamutes, I said palico a second ago, the palamutes are there. So they're awesome. And then, again, they fight too. They've got their knives and their daggers in their mouths and they're like slashing and stuff, like cool anime wolf dogs. And I love them and I hope they're here to stay. And the other new thing are wire bugs, which are basically grappling hooks, except they're tied to a resource. So you start every mission off, you have 2 and you use one. You get a little, you know, like circle that fills out slowly as it comes back. And by slowly, I mean, you know, pretty quick, but just not instantaneously. And so what you can do is I can throw a wire bug at a wall, and then I can wall run up as long as I have stamina. and then he'll do a little hop off the wall, and if I got another wire bug, I can rewire myself to the wall, and at that point, I've got some more stamina back that's recovered already. I can run up a wall, and so like getting around the map between the dog and the wire bugs has never ever been so much fun. It's like all the fun of like climbing in Breath of the Wild without the slowness, and also I have a grappling hook and a horse that can climb the mountain with me. It's amazing. It's like the best way I can put it, and it makes discovering the secrets and where the best little, like, because you can mine and you can gather resources, but the really good stuff's hidden. And now it's hidden on top of stuff and in caves. Yeah. And you can find extra camps that let you fast travel within the map, because you always have the same starting location, but there are secret camps that you have to find and then do a quest to unlock. But then once you do, you can just hop around the map really quick with fast traveling. And loading times, dude, you'd think I was running off an SSD. Like, there are none. Like, once I get into the game, the village is like sectioned out, so you have the main area, and then you have like like 3 other sections, and you have to like transition between them, but it's instantaneous, and there's a fast travel system within which I can just select to go to those areas, and again, like there's just no loading. It's awesome.
You talked about kind of the exploration for resources and whatnot, and I know you also said the maps are not huge, but is there that also kind of Breath of the Wild aspect of like, that looks interesting over there, I just want to spend my time kind of exploring and running up that because I think there might be something?
Yeah, but bite size, like real bite size. And again, like once you discover it, it's always the same. There's no randomness to this. Like,
okay, so like
aside from
once you find that, hey, there's a mining location here, basically every time you load into that area, you're like, oh, let me run by and mine that area because I may need that resource. Yeah,
it doesn't like mark it on your map necessarily. But if you know it's there, or like a nice little like, and stuff like refreshes, some slower than others, like certain mining crop or mining nodes will refresh slower than others, but you can kind of do a loop if that's what your goal is, at least in this particular hunt. So, but
Sean, not to be confused, this is not an open world game. This is like, here's a hub world. You go to this mini map.
Yeah, I got that. I just wasn't sure.
I
just had a great idea of the size of these little individual maps, whether or not it kind of had this urge to explore, or if they're still, like Karch said, kind of bite size, so it's not quite that level.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always thought there would be more hunting in Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I remember your first kind of like almost disappointment, and it just never crossed my mind what you thought monster hunting was, which would be a cool game unto itself as well, almost like a Shadow of the Colossus, but with more meat to it,
Yeah.
And again, but no, that's not what this is. It's very, very goal oriented. Very, again, especially on the Switch, smaller and bite sized, and it doesn't look as good, but it still plays just as good, and I'm having a great time.
And for a Switch game, everything I've seen, it's a pretty game.
Yeah, and it is. Like, some people are like, "Oh, it's hideous." I'm like, I don't know. Like, I really honestly think, aside from like certain like particle density and like effects and stuff like that, the biggest difference between the two is the lighting. The lighting makes an enormous difference and certain textures are lower res, obviously, but the biggest difference is the lighting, in my opinion. And things might be just a smidge smaller in scale, but multiple monsters are back on the same map and they fight each other and you can ride them. That's another huge addition, is that in Monster Hunter World you could mount it, but basically that was like a very quick mini game where like you would jump and attack it, and then you would enter like a mounting, scenario, and you just kind of stab it over and over again with your knife. And then you would have to like press a button to hold on when it tried to shake you off, and that was the extent of that. Now, after you use, the wire bugs can also have, they have wire bug moves. So for my hammer, I have unique moves associated with my wire bug resource. So I can hold on to it at all times to make sure I have optimal movement, because basically it acts as a dodge as well in combat, a super dodge, because you can always like roll, but now you can like throw out a wire bug off to the side and just get the heck out of there when a monster comes charging.
Hook your way out of an attack.
Exactly. But you can also use it as an attack, and like I think everybody gets 2, like a light one and a heavy one. At least I haven't tried any of the other weapons, but that's my assumption because I have a light one and a heavy one. One, basically, I charge up and then like I kind of fling myself forward like a rolling Sonic attack. And during the attack, I'm impervious to damage, which is nice because, monster charges me and I charge it. Mr. Hammerman, like let's go kind of thing. And the other one is like a really slow wind up, jump in the air, real slow, come down, but then do some massive damage that hits like twice. And that uses 2 of those resources. That's about it. Like I said, aside from that, which is, kind of a lot, but at the same time not, everything you expect from Monster Hunter is there. All the menus and the items and the tutorials and the details and the stats, it's all there. I don't know which monsters are new except for like the one on the cover, Magnum Aloe, which I actually fought earlier today, and he is angry. He doesn't like you at all. And he kept kicking my butt. And you got to be careful though, because I joined a multiplayer one. I forgot to load up on any of my items, so I was basically like, "Oh, I can't get hit. Like I can't die, otherwise I'm screwed." Because what happens you have a 50-minute time limit on almost every single hunt, unless it's less to like increase the difficulty, and then you can faint 3 times, so you get knocked out 3 times. Except that's true for multiplayer too. So now you got 4 people. And sometimes you just get stuck.
And you all share that 3 feints?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh.
Yeah. But, like for the most part, like, I don't know how the matchmaking works. I mean, I do know how, I guess, the matchmaking works. Like, if you've gotten to this point in the game, you're all on the same quest, and presumably you're all roughly the same skill level. But sometimes you just get stuck with somebody who's like, "What are you doing, guy? Like, you just died. Like, you got knocked out 3 times in a row, like, immediately. Like, have you ever played this game? How did you get to this point?" kind of thing. But for the most part, I'm playing with really good people, and we just kill that monster. And like, I haven't gotten to the
low key pat yourself on the back.
Low key pat
You
myself.
play with pretty much people your own skill level. I mean, I play with pretty good people.
I do. No, I honestly have not got to the part where it's hard yet. Like, I remember when I crossed the threshold. They call it again high rank. I crossed the threshold into high rank both on the 3DS and the on the PS4 for Monster Hunter World. And I was like, wow, that's right. This is where the game really starts, because those guys do not mess around, and you get hit like twice, and they just punish you for making any kind of mistake, and it's awesome, and I love it.
Been a pretty busy week for us, or 2 weeks.
It has been, yeah, busy 2 weeks.
Good.
It's gonna be a busy month. I'm gonna keep playing this. I'm gonna keep playing Kingdom Hearts 2, which I have been playing. I'm not gonna talk about. I like it. It's whatever. And then Returnal comes out at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And whatchamacallit, the Nier Replicant,
Yeah,
the remake of the original comes out, but I'm gonna have to put that in like the back half of the year if I have time, because
that's deep queue, and I'm still debating whether or not I want to go play it.
Yeah. So, all right, tell us about what you guys have been playing. Write it in the comments, tweet at us. We'll tell you whether those games are good or bad. You can tell us if we're good or bad. But we're gonna move on to the topic of the show.
Or are we?
No, not quite.
Right after this drink break.
Drink break!
All right, for today's topic of the show, we're going to talk about endings. Specifically, multiple endings. We'll talk about endings as they impact a story and what we liked about certain endings a different time. But today we're going to talk about multiple endings, inspired by my recent playthrough of Bravely Default 2, where it had multiple endings, in which credits rolled 3 separate occasions. So let's go ahead and get started with some examples of multiple endings that you've experienced recently or ever. Jason.
So when I thought about this, I tried to break it down into like categories of how like different studios' takes on how to execute the idea of multiple endings. And I came across 4 main ones that I kind of just want to lay out as a basis, and I'll give an example of each one. It doesn't necessarily have to frame our conversation, but I would be interested in knowing, did I miss any, and what you guys think about this. But I had like category 1 it's a smaller category, but special ending for those who really put in the effort. And the example I came up with for this was like Breath of the Wild, where there's a standard ending, but if you find all the memories, you get the special ending.
That's kind of what Bravely Default 2 was, because there's those conditions. I had to find a secret job, to unlock all of them, which I had except that secret job.
So what would have happened if you didn't do that?
It just doesn't. It just doesn't. You go to a certain part, and then if you've got that job, a thing happens, or it doesn't, and then you would go through in that situation the second ending.
Did you know that?
Did I know it? I looked it up because I wasn't about to spend an extra 3 hours trying to figure it out.
Well, that's so interesting, and so that actually dovetails into. I'm going to make the conversation branching, but that dovetails into how do you feel if you get the quote unquote bad ending? Because we've all been in that situation. I feel like what if you went into this blind? Would you have thought to got that job, and what would you have done when you got to that ending?
I mean, I did go into it blind, and I gave a big WTF out loud when it happened because I was "There's,"
and also via the chat group.
Exactly. And like I exactly. I forgot about that. I got real ranty
upset.
real fast. And I was like, oh wait, no, it's a fake out.
I think, because it is red. And then like 5 minutes later, it's like, oh wait, no, wait, there's another ending. It's okay, guys.
And like, I don't, because like, because it's not obvious right away, because it felt like a bad ending. And I didn't realize that they didn't do the thing where like Nier does. Nier doesn't have a bad ending per se. It just has a ending and it feels soon. Nier Automata, that is. And then, but Nier then immediately tells you, wait, there's more. Play again. Keep playing. You're not done yet. This didn't do that. It assumes I'm going to start up that save file and then watch the extra cutscene. And so like I didn't know that part. That's the part that I had to go look up. It was very weird. And so like if they had just told me, like, if they'd done a real quick credit scene and been like, actually, I would have not cared. I might have ranted real quick as like a knee jerk, but I would, okay, well, that's fine. But they didn't do that. I could have just walked away from that game. And it wouldn't be because I did anything wrong. You cannot get the good ending on the first try. And so in that situation, not only was it the quote unquote bad ending, but it was horribly executed.
Wow. How many hours did it add after that?
Not a lot. Like I said, like especially because I knew what I was doing. A couple hours
for each of the next couple endings.
Yeah, like maybe 2 for each ending.
But still, it's not the complete experience without.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a rare. I'm thinking more of like when you have no choice. So for me, it was The Witcher, and I'm not going to spoil the ending that I got, but it was like the quote unquote bad ending, worst case scenario of everything. You can't. There's no post game content for that. Like that's just it. You play the game, what the developers deemed not great, or whatever you did to deserve that, and that's what it is. Like Sean, how do you feel in that situation, or have you ever come across that situation?
Not really. The closest I can say that I've come across it would have been the Fallout games up to Fallout New Vegas, but even then, you get to the end of those, and it's really just. Those games have that Ron Perlman voiceover that is kind of a summation of the major quests and then the main story of those games and kind of the options you picked. But they don't. I wouldn't say it's something like the way I know the Witcher 3 ends, and that it's this like, because The Witcher 3, my understanding is gives you this. If you pick a good ending, it gives you this nice one where all the major characters you kind of figure out what happened in their lives, or where their lives kind of went after the end of the game. I can't really think of a game that has done that, and also done that probably to the extent that Witcher 3 did.
What about Mass Effect? Does it not?
So it depends how you want to view it. Mass Effect's ending was basically didn't matter if you got to the end of the game with the whole galactic readiness and all that. You basically picked one of 3 buttons and got one of 3 endings that were not related to all the other choices you'd made in 3 and also in 1 and 2. Now, the counterpoint to that I think often got forgot during the hubbub of the bad ending is all of Mass Effect 3 is actually the culmination of the choices you made in Mass Effect 1 and 2, and it plays out certain quest lines differently. But the actual ending of that trilogy, they don't really have an effect on, which was one of the big frustrations is I did all these things and I've had all these interactions and choices, and it turned out in the actual ending of the game, it didn't matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mass Effect is really one of those, maybe the endings were the friends we made along the way kind of situations.
Yes, and it does a very good job at that. It just, the ending itself was frustrating to people because they thought that was going to continue on into the ending.
Yeah, I feel like they shouldn't have made a choice at the end. They probably should have just been like, character A definitely died for you, like you beat the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, like let's say that they only made one ending and it's a victorious Shepard lives and he beats the bad guy. Maybe one where Shepard doesn't live, but everybody else beats the bad guy.
Well,
but either way,
Mass Effect 2 can end where everyone dies.
And that's kind of cool, but
Mass
not
Effect
when
2 had a very well done ending, actually.
Right, not when there's a third one known to exist, you know? Like, that's kind of goofy. But my point being, like, if the true, like, the final ending is the same for everybody, then I think it doesn't matter that they didn't consider your things, because, again, at the end of the day, you know, this character I loved died because of choices I made. And it doesn't matter that we all had the same ending, because in my game, that guy died and he wasn't there to...
And he therefore wasn't there. Yeah.
Exactly, to enjoy it with me. But then they added that weird little thing where you still had hope. No, I'm just saying, you still had hope that you would have some sort of agency over the ending where you just really didn't.
Yeah. Really, the ending should have been just... The game ends, and then kind of but then seeing the galaxy go on from there, and seeing the culmination of your choices and what it did to your allies, and whether humans are dominant or if it's a big happy alien and human family cooperative. I think that would have been the better way to go. Vice kind of giving that appearance of choice, but then the choice is not really playing out earlier.
Right. Jason. The Witcher. Let's go back to that. You said you got the bad ending. Was it the bad ending, or was it simply the sad ending?
It was the sad ending, I suppose.
Okay. But like, was it fulfilling? Again, maybe not necessarily what you would have wanted, but was it fulfilling narratively?
No.
Like, you don't feel like the story wrapped itself up the right way?
Definitely. Well, okay. Hold on.
Okay, try as you can to be as objective about this.
I'm going to try to be objective. It's... For the way that I played the game, I got the tragic ending, but I guess there was like poetic justice in that, based on the way that I play the game. So I guess in a vacuum, when my emotions don't impact my thoughts about the story, yes, it was fulfilling in that it felt well done.
Okay,
but it was tragic.
Because what happens normally is, and I don't have as much experience on getting to the end of a Western RPG versus getting to the end of many JRPGs, in which sometimes there are multiple endings, and sometimes they vary very slightly, sometimes significantly. But like, the bad ending is usually literally a bad ending objectively. Like, this isn't how, like, everybody knows this isn't how the story was supposed to end. You've hidden behind some ridiculous wall just so that I'll play more of the game. The proper denouement, like, whereas The Witcher was like, here's one of many choices, or many results of choices that you made, and it is tragic. You may hate it, but I personally love tragedy sometimes, not all the time, and I might still be salty, and I might want to go back and get the happy ending, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate, I guess is the best way. I don't appreciate certain bad endings versus others.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way well put.
People's frustrations with Witcher 3's ending was the fact that it doesn't give you an indicator, really. Like, you could be making the choices that you think are the right choices, and it doesn't really give you, over the course of the game, an indicator that you're doing things wrong.
But why would it matter?
Does any game ever do that, though? And there's a point to discuss. Like, how much should a game or a developer or a story telegraph?
I don't want it to.
Ending?
I love the fact that it didn't. I love the fact that it made me reflect on those decisions and ask myself, like, what led to this? And the thing is I have an idea of what did, but I never looked it up. And it's really cool to just have that interpretation in my mind of what did I do wrong.
I mean, I remain of opinion. I mean, Witcher is a unique case, because most games that are going to give, to me, that give you multiple endings that aren't the that essentially are that aren't in the you failed ending category, is really, it's not a good ending versus a bad ending. It's a good ending versus an evil ending. KOTOR being the example. I can play KOTOR, and there are different endings in KOTOR. There really are only two. There's the was I good Revan, or was I evil Revan by the end? Right.
And so that's a different situation. It kind of goes into, Jason has a point here called choose your own adventure. It's basically a playthrough. I'm doing a totally different playthrough style.
Yeah, and in those cases, it's very obvious. I'm going to get the evil ending because I'm playing.
Assuming there are multiple,
Revan.
Exactly. And you don't mind those, right?
No, because
Yeah.
if I'm getting the evil ending, it's because I chose the evil ending. Now, a different example, and I struggle with bringing up Fallout and Skyrim because Fallout has the little summation, almost slideshow at the end, but there's not a ton of control over the ending of those games. There's significant control over certain major quests in those games, and Fallout New Vegas in particular, depending upon some choices you made in some other quests, it could limit, or just dialogue choices you made, it could limit your ability to get good or bad endings in the culmination of that quest line. But at the end of the day, on a lot of games, those have minimal impacts on the actual final ending of the game. Fallout New Vegas always ends with a battle over Hoover Dam. It's just who are you fighting for and fighting against as a result.
Right. To quote my favorite fantasy series of all time, Journey Before Destination.
So we kind of touched on a couple of the ones that the categories that I had laid out here, but I had the special ending, which we talked about, the choose your own adventure, which we talked about, decisions impacting the ending, which we kind of touched on with like The Witcher, Mass Effect versus something like Skyrim, and then the require multiple playthroughs to get to the true ending, like Autonoma or Bravely Default. The one thing we haven't talked a ton about are those kind of, when I said choose your own adventure, I was thinking like Detroit Become Human or like Until Dawn, where you are kind of, it's more of a cinematic experience and you are just kind of making the decision points that do get you to like an ending.
And multiple endings very specifically designed and catered around those decisions. I mean, sort of like The Witcher, like Sean said, it's a very odd one, like in a good way, but like also hard to kind of pin down and compare to other things.
That's true.
But with
narratively, it's very well done.
It's a sticky web it weaves.
Yeah, I mean, I have some issues with it because while I understand like Jason's point that he likes that the game didn't telegraph, it also smacks to me of the developer saying there is a way you should have played this game. And I'm obviously never a big fan of that.
But it's a little interesting in that it reveals something about like their view of morality and.
I mean, is it the way you should have played it though?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's art. Really and truly.
For sure.
I don't know. I love it. I love it when you don't see the wires, and that's just my own personal.
I mean, sure. Right? All media's, all immersion can't happen unless you remove that component as best you can. Anyway, what's one of the worst endings you've ever got that you hated? Like as far as like, not just period. Like again, I don't want to talk about endings in general, but like as far as multiple endings, like what's the worst bad ending you ever got?
I can let Sean go first, but I have a funny one that I'm thinking of.
Okay. I don't know if I can think of one. I mean, I don't play play a ton of games that really have really multiple endings, and when they like I really haven't played anything that's at the same level of The Witcher. I mean, it's not like I don't feel like I have ever stumbled into an ending. Mass Effect 3's weird little thing aside, feeling kind of fruitless, but then enjoying the journey of that game, really that whole game being the summation of the series. But it's not like I got to the end of KOTOR and I was like, oh no, I was Evil Revan all along? I can't believe this. Like, no, I knew on that playthrough I was going to be Evil Revan. I can't really think of an ending that's ever from that standpoint of like choice where I was like, oh no, this is terrible. I can't think of a case like that.
So in Nier, just to help you along, endings C and D are basically a choice you get to make. You get to fight as 2A or A2.
A2 or 9S.
Or 9S. And then there's an ending E that kind of like, that's your happy ending. And I think if I'm not mistaken, that's a canonical ending. Anyway, like there's one where you have to choose basically. You can experience both, but you kind of have to choose and you get one ending or the other. Were you fine just like with the way they served that up? Were you just kind of along for the ride, or were you like, oh, I don't want to?
I think I beat that, and it was like you can go back and choose. So I immediately went and I think I picked 8-2, and I won the fight with as A2.
Same,
and then which is funny because then you play that as 9S, and it's a much easier fight as 9s.
I bet. Yeah, he's got all the power in that fight, and it's neat that they let you have that power when you pick him.
but I immediately did the other one, and I mean both of them I thought were fine ways of ending that game for both those characters. And then because you then had ending E, which really, whether you picked what, because in order to get E, you have to, I think, get C and D.
Yes.
But no matter whether you did D then C or C then D, you then get the option to do E, which basically kind of is the ending to that game at the end of the day.
Right.
So none of them bothered me. I
Okay.
liked A2, I think, winning more than 9's winning, but
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I also found it funny because 9's wins, but he ends up still getting stabbed.
Yeah, no, yeah. He deserved that for being a bad boy. Mine, funnily enough, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this in all my praise of the game, my least favorite like bad ending, because it came out of nowhere, and I was like, I didn't know this game had that, was Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight has a bad ending because it works off a percentage thing, but it's not even so much that technically. There's just this area I never went to that has this huge story component, for that game anyway. Like, it's not like this is long dialogue narrative section, but it's like, it's pretty important to kind of like the quest you're on and the history of this little kingdom and why it collapsed. I didn't go there. And it's easy enough to miss because it has a really good ability, but it's not one you absolutely need.
Yeah.
And so like, I then couldn't go do this other thing that gives me like, and so like I got the bad ending at first, and there's another one, and then there's the final one, which honestly, I'm not sure if I ever went back and got, because like it was really hard as nails boss fight kind of thing, and I was just like starting to finally get burned out on that game. But I remember thinking, well, wow, what an awful way to end such an amazing game with like, nope, you didn't do everything. I'm like, and I know it's not a hand-holding kind of game, and I guess if it had to be this way or that way, I'll take it as it was because I loved it so much for what they did. But at the same time, it's like, that kind of sucks, like mostly because it's quick and abrupt. Like, you beat what you think is the final boss, and then it's just like the briefest of cutscenes and the credits roll. I'm like, and like at first you're not sure, like, is this just a dark ending, which is fine, or is this the bad ending?
Something?
And I missed something, and I didn't like that, and I didn't like.
You've heard it here, folks. Hollow Knight's the worst game ever made. Terrible.
Team Cherry sucks.
Worst game of all time. Never free to play.
Never free to play. Jason, what's your answer?
There's a good question there too, which is, to me, there's a frustration there of the game not really like. You can talk about liking the wires, not seeing the wires, but you didn't know whether or not that was just the way that the game ended or if there was something else. And it begs the question for The Witcher. Jason, did you just originally, when that game ended and rolled credits, did you think that was the way The Witcher 3 ended and you had to go look up to see if there was other versions, or was it obvious to you that this was a multiple ending or alternate ending?
I knew enough going in that I knew that your decisions affected the ending.
Okay.
So I knew that much. I didn't know. But, I mean, to Karch's point, like, who knows? Maybe if I would have rebooted that save file, it would have been like, no, fake out, and then I just never know to this day.
Maybe.
But no, I kind of knew you would get different endings depending on the decisions. But my favorite bad ending that I've ever experienced was playing Fable with you and Greg that summer.
That's like Sean said, that's an evil ending.
But to me, it was hilarious because when I would play, I feel like I would try to be good and shrink our horns. And then you and Greg would get on now for your turns and you would be like, bad, 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 bad. And I'm like, God, we're so bad. I got to get us to be that good. And then we get to the very end of the game. And if you haven't played Fable by now, then I'm sorry. I'm about to spoil it. So give me 2 minutes here. But in the Fable, you have this choice to make. Do you choose to spare your long lost sister that you love dearly, or do you keep the most powerful sword in the game? And Greg had the controller in his hands, and he's like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to kill the sister. I don't care, I want the sword. And I just remember being like, no! And he did it. He killed the sister. and that was the ending that we got. So I mean, we
See,
had
that one's
sword.
unique in that, like, your choice is up until that point meant nothing because you get to make that final choice,
right?
and it's telegraphed completely 100% like what's going to happen.
I
One
know,
of these is good. One of these is bad.
Right.
I know, but you and I weren't the ones making that call at that time.
I think I was gone by that point. I don't think I made it to the end with you.
That could be, and that would
Yeah.
explain a lot because I don't know what you would have had us do.
Because you could have been an evil man and then made the right decision at the very end. But
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Didn't even think about that.
So overall, do you prefer this kind of mystery? Let's say, ideally though, like we've talked a lot about, for the most part, negatively about multiple endings. I think for the most part, it's usually handled poorly.
Yeah,
but ideally, how, assuming that they could handle it the way you like it, do you like the mystery or agency or novelty, whatever adjective you want to throw in there, of multiple endings, or do you prefer a nice solid ending, regardless of how narrative the game is? Like, even the Messenger could technically have multiple, it doesn't, but the Messenger could have multiple endings. But like which one do you guys like? Because I almost unequivocally will always vote, give me just one ending. Give me your vision, and then I'll agree or disagree with how it played out, but then that's that. Versus any level of control over the ending.
Spoken like a true married man.
Taking the, like, I played good, I played evil out of the option, because
yes, because that doesn't count.
But I made choices that were somewhat ambiguous on how they were going to play out. No, I think I would rather have the one ending.
Okay.
Because I'm also, like, with the blaring exception of Skyrim, I don't tend to go back and replay a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole idea of, like, oh, if I want to get another ending, it's like the idea to me of getting to the end of Witcher 3 without it telegraphing that I had made the choices that the developers decided were the wrong ones, and then get a bad ending where significant characters or a significant character dies, and then be like, well, to fix this, I'd have to go and replay this entire massive game. It's like,
You don't
no,
have to fix
like,
it. It's still to me, it's still well done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Jason on that regard. Like, you got to be able to accept, because at least, again, oddball thing, like, it's not that they were hiding. I mean, they kind of are. Like, it's this decision between, like, I would want to choose things in which this would result, but you make choices at some point the way you think you would normally make them, and then they turn it on its head. It's like, oh, but a butterfly flapped its wings and then everybody died because you were good over here. And KOTOR 2 does some BS like that.
And so does the parts of Witcher 3 that I played does that as well.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's I'm describing that. And, like, I'm defending you, but also defending, like, I see both of your points. I think I lean a little bit more towards Jason, but I can definitely see the frustration that you're explaining.
Yeah, it wrecks the power fantasy of playing the game.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's that's a choice on CD Projekt Red's part of this was not as much about the power fantasy as much as the narrative that they wanted to tell, and so that's fine, but it just means it's not what I'm looking for in a game.
I'll be the one dissenting opinion and just say that
I think Karch just agree with you. Aren't I the dissenting opinion?
No, I on The Witcher specifically, the way they handled it. My question being, in an ideal situation where multiple endings are handled well versus still a single narrative that, again, is like, The Last of Us, Uncharted, all those kinds of games.
But also, like, I like what Nier Automata did. Big fan of that as they kind of built on one another. But with the exception really of ending C or D, if you want to pick which of those two are canonical following A and B. And before you get to E, which, like I said, E really makes whether you pick C or D a moot point.
Right.
I enjoy the way that they are able to kind of build on one another. Get to the end of the game, and there's a handful of different versions that are based upon your choices, but not so much your desires. Right.
Right.
Like that's kind of what Witcher 3 I think falls under, and I just because like. I think I ran into a similar problem playing Dishonored, where it was like, oh, there's some obscure choice, or I think I thought there was, and I found out I was wrong at the time. Where it's like if I can't get an inkling of which direction this is putting me towards, it's like I'm stuck in a game where it's real life, and I don't have that insight, and now it loses its enjoyment for me.
This is you. This is
Fair.
you. Just you can't. It's your DM complex. You can't get over the lack of control. You can't.
I am the master.
But I don't know. I
Yeah,
totally see
probably.
what you're saying, but it's a little funny just because you're so good at DM that I would see that and you'd like not wanting to not know. I need to know.
There's a reason that I through all of our D&D things, I have been the guy who tends to DM. I like having control over the narrative.
Sure. Yeah, and that makes so much sense.
Once you get a
And-
taste, it's hard to go back.
And so,
You're-
like,
and now you're
I
writing
love-
your own story.
Do I love reading books? Yeah, I love reading books, but I'm not playing the character in the book.
Right.
You're reading
And
it.
yeah, and this that line in and of itself goes to many of the reasons narratively why I think The Witcher 3 is a gem and a extremely well done narrative game. But the narrative just didn't land. Doesn't work for me.
And that makes
And then combine that with the fact that I did not enjoy the gameplay. But
right, which is totally a fair criticism. I will just say, like, circling back to I'm the dissenting one. I think in a nuanced way though, and I think it just depends on the game, like everything else. And I'm gonna like it if it's well done, and if it's not totally binary, like what you said, Sean, like I'm either good or bad, and it's very telegraphed. But at the same time, to your point, Karch, there's no way I would want the choice at the end of The Last of Us Part 1 to, like, either save Ellie or not. Like, I want to know Naughty Dog's vision on that. I don't want to be that. I'm not role-playing at that point. Like, I want to know how the story ends.
Mhm.
So it just depends, and I need it to be well done.
No, that's the coward's answer. That's not the dissenting opinion. That's the you don't get to choose. No, pick one. Pick one.
Let's say I was only able to experience one of those types of games for the rest of my life.
Yes.
I guess I have to go with you two and say
All right.
I want the vision because
There you go.
there are so many fantastically talented and creative people that I like need to hear those stories. But if I could pick a game that had 5 equally good Naughty Dog caliber endings and my choices truly impacted which ending I got, I
That
think
would
I
be
maybe
amazing.
would pick that. I think I maybe would pick that.
And I
you
guess
know?
that's technically what I asked. I said
that's-
ideally.
That's called Sean Myber's dungeon mastering.
Right. But that is like literally impossible.
Yeah, I
like,
know.
We're talking quantum computing
Yes,
to
I
get
know.
something that can but somebody also has to be a quantum computer I mean, I guess, I don't know. It's like, it's impossible. You just can't. Telltale can't do it.
There's a reason that, like, outside of, you look at most Western RPGs, and outside of I mean, with the exception of The Witcher and in some ways Mass Effect, most of those games, the choice only matters within the quest line. And the moment you finish that particular side quest or whatever the quest line is, the choices matter. And if they matter, they're in very minuscule ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because people get their jimmies so rustled, and they keep falling for it. I'm like, it's not gonna be different. You're gonna feel a sting at the end of this game, multiple endings and choices and all that stuff. You're not gonna experience, unless you were just there for the journey. If you were just there for the ending, you're playing the wrong game. You're expecting the wrong thing out of this, but you see it every time on Reddit and Twitter and all that stuff where people are just and you saw it with Mass Effect, and a little bit different there, like maybe potentially some broken promises kind of thing, poorly,
there was if not broken promises, certainly
implications, and hype.
Poor management of hype.
Right. And so but it's just not possible. And so you have to be okay with, again, the journey being the story. And I am usually fine when I know ahead of time, and I'm not being served up a Bravely Default 2 nonsense, and I'm not being served up a Hollow Knight nonsense, because man, what a journey that was. And despite the fact that I could tackle anything in any order, it's still a very linear game. Like the main story beats are still always where they are.
Yeah.
I just missed one, and that meant I don't get. And it's not even the bad ending; it's just the completely confusing ending. Like nothing was explained at this point. Whereas if you go do those other things, everything is explained. And like, why would you hide this amazing story behind random chance?
Yeah.
Like, which is so weird because of how like good I was at uncovering everything in that game, except for that one little thing. Like, I'm really curious to how I missed it, but I wasn't the only one by far. There were a lot of people, asking that same question. And I still, still love that game and can't wait for the sequel. But man, don't do that again. Don't do that again. Do it differently or don't do it at all.
There's one question that always comes up when you talk about multiple endings that we actually didn't touch on. So I have to put it out there. How do you guys feel about locking sections of content behind decision choices? And so
I love it.
So the main one here would be like Persona 5, where if you make certain decisions, you might get locked out of like 5 to 10 hours of content.
Well, I mean,
and you can't get it back unless you go replay.
No, because having played, assuming 5 is like 4 and having played 4, it's just the same thing we've been talking about. It's the bad ending. And then it's kind of like Bravely Default 2, but it's not intentional in that it's just part of the story. Like you said, you're locked out of it. And at that point, I think that's stupid. You're missing some of the best content because you didn't micromanage the right way. Because let's face it, you wouldn't know how to. Unless you've played all of them before and you've perfected them all before, so you know the strategies that typically come with these games, you don't know how to do that. And like, again, now we're just padding. And don't do that. That's stupid. Don't pad your game, and certainly not hide that stuff behind it. However, I think games are way, and this is kind of a tangent, but I think games and developers, they're way too scared to lock stuff out from players. Like, once I make a decision, maybe I can't do anything about anything anymore, and like, unless I save scum. But even if you save scum, you still, at some point, a decision has to be made, and you have to lose something. Like, I hear people who love Morrowind, for example, kind of bemoan the newer the direction that Oblivion and Skyrim took. Skyrim. sounds wrong. What's going on?
You're losing your mind.
And the decision they took is you can just do everything you want. Take all the quest lines, be all the things, be God on Earth, and befriend everybody. Which is, from a D&D perspective, and a storyteller perspective, which is where I kind of approach things. Not that I am a storyteller, but like, where are the consequences? I can't be a vampire and the president of the mage college and save this town, and I can't be the warrior and the mage. I can't be the archer and the blah blah blah. I can't be the best chef in the world and the digger. Like, make me make choices. And then don't be afraid to lock stuff away based on those choices. But that's not quite what you're asking.
Sure, no. I totally agree with that. And I think a microcosm of that is if you look at the way that skill trees work between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. In Diablo 2, your build is your build. And if you screw it up, you screw it up. And then you pay the consequences to restat.
Right.
But in Diablo 3, once you unlock, you can basically select a skill at that level, and you can toggle them into different loadouts, which is, to me, it's frustrating. I'm like, no, like what you said, Karch, like, make me play this game a certain way. Make me make decisions. Let there be consequences. That's okay.
But again, different kind of topic.
Right. But it is in the same vein, and is what I asked. And
maybe if the endings were, maybe if I saw different, I have 2 endings. And then once I make the decision, for instance, we'll go back to Fable. I kill my sister, I take the sword, or I save my sister, I take the sword. But now I have 5 more hours of gameplay, that leads to the final ending after I took the sword.
Sure, yeah.
Or I have 5 hours of gameplay after. What'd you say?
Basically getting to then play through the consequence of that choice.
Exactly, instead of just it being a cinematic. that I can reload and re-see or something like the same, or wherever the choice takes place necessarily.
I feel like we did that when we played Baldur's Gate. We found this one main character annoying. This is a main character, like on the box art main character, and we were like,
oh, she's the worst.
She's so annoying. And then the first chance we got when we met her in the game, we just killed her. And that's
we
it.
let her die. Yeah,
we let her die. And you know what? There's a quest line associated with her, and I don't know how it happens if you encounter her people after she's dead, or if you can even do it, but she's just not there. That's it. If you screw that up, you screw that up.
Baldur's Gate 2 had some other things where there were ways that you could just not get certain characters, and therefore you didn't get to do the quests that involved those characters, and you got locked. That was it. There were, and they had entire quest lines based upon what class you picked, and therefore if you were one of the, if you picked Ranger, you got the Ranger quest line, but you're going to miss out on the Mage and the Fighter and the Cleric and the Thief and all their individual quest lines. I mean,
and that kind of goes back to the Mass Effect thing where it's like you made a bunch of choices and this happened, and the endings are mostly the same, but again, like that character isn't with you, and either you're happy or sad about that, but that's still how you played the game.
Yeah. And that leads to me to like better replayability. I almost feel like newer games don't have as much replayability because they let you do everything on the first time through.
Absolutely. Get the trophy and then put it in the trash, you know?
And that's, like Mass Effect and Baldur's Gate are actually great examples of because there are consequences because I picked certain things, but like I still got to play the character I wanted to play. And what I got was what that character got to enjoy, and therefore it still jived with what I was attempting to do.
Right. Yep. Final Fantasy VI is a great example of, in an oddball situation, like because no other Final Fantasy really does this. There are, I'm going to spoil a 30-year-old game, but there's like two halves to it. The bad guy basically achieves his goal at some point, like maybe 2/3 into the game, and the world is destroyed. Like an apocalypse of sorts happens. And then you take control of a single character, not even necessarily the main character, but a single character, and slowly, piece by piece, you can get the band back together or not. Like the game, and then you can continue to make choices where even though you go to see that person dies, they don't make it through. And then you can go fight that final boss with a roster of like 16 different characters, or just 4. Like you're still going to kill Kefka at the end. He's going to die. The world will be, quote unquote, saved for whatever's left of it. But you won't have everybody, or you will have everybody.
Not everyone will have made it along the way.
Right. And I don't know if there really is I don't know. I've never beat it. I would very much, oh no, we didn't talk about my Final Fantasy bet. We got to talk about that and stuff it in the beginning or something. We have to solidify that.
Just
anyway,
put it in housekeeping next time. It's not till next year.
But I wanna solidify the bet so I can.
We'll solidify it next time. Put it in the notes for next time.
I meant to put it in the notes this time.
Well,
I think what I'm saying is that we're done talking about it.
Okay,
I'm the bad ending.
You're the bad ending, Karch. I'm the good ending. Later, Skater. I love this podcast. I love video games, and I love you too, lovely NFers. You all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
5 hot dogs.
You can use that as the closing, but we can still talk.
I think, Karch, you would like Mass Effect 2's ending.
I loved everything about Mass Effect 2. I just stopped playing it for one reason or another.
Mass Effect 2 ending is really enjoyable because depending upon if you've done the side quests with the characters and then the choice you've made on how to use all of your crew to make that final infiltration, a lot of your crew could end up dead. And then you went into Mass Effect 3 and it's like, you can't get those people. Like, they're dead.
Ooh, that's
not
interesting.
Mass Effect 3.
That is really interesting.
No, I very much am looking forward to that remaster. I am going to try to make time for it.
Karch, tell me why I should wait for the remaster versus just playing the
originals off Game Pass.
Yeah, because you're Mr. Fidelity. You want the best.
No, not for these games. I'm going to play them on my phone.
it'll still look better on your phone.
I don't care though.
All
that
right, if you don't
much.
care, I thought you would. I was trying to
won't.
save you that pain when it comes out, and you're like, "Oh, I want."
Is
would-
it as bad
I
as
would-
Final
I-
Fantasy VII? Because if it's not, I'm good.
No, it's not as bad as that.
I would also verify, Jason. I don't know. I'm hoping they do, but I haven't checked. I would verify if the EA Pass or whatever it's called, the EA bit on Game Pass, if it has all the DLCs or not.
Oh well, I hate DLC. I never play it.
Okay, but there's at least one DLC for Mass Effect 3 that if you're going to play the entire series, you need to get.
Yeah, but if
He's
I'm going to
not
play
gonna.
to Mass Effect 3, by the time I get there, the remake will be out.
No, that's fair.
Because
I don't know if your save. I don't know if your save files from not remakes will carry over.
oh
Onto the other.
god, yeah. Okay. When's it come out?
May 14th. You're only a month away.
Wait. I'd
I
probably
think
just
you
wait.
can wait. Yeah, I was because I'll go splitsies with you on PC. And we
Wow.
can- I told you I would.
Okay,
I'll play it on PC. That's fine.
I'm down. Well, you can game. You can stream it.
The other reason I could. The other reason I'd recommend playing it on playing the remaster is there are some rough patches in the first one, and they're gonna smooth them out. They're gonna not all of them. It's still a rough game by comparison. Still
But
fun.
also remember, you're going to get less Miranda Lawson butt shots.
Oh,
One
man.
less. One less.
Is
There's
it just
still
one
gonna be-
less?
It's just it was something silly,
the
like
really
she's
gratuitous one. Yeah.
she's pouring out. Not even it's gratuitous for the scene. She's like pouring her heart out about her like abusive father, and for some reason the camera's like
Lingers on her butt.
and it's a good butt. And
Wait,
you'll probably
is it a
see more of
mocap
it.
butt? Is it a mocap butt?
Her face is. I don't know if her entire body was.
It'd be cool if it was though.
Shut up, Jason.
It would be
Go eat
cool
your
if
hot
it was
dogs.
though. Did you say go get your laptop?
Go eat
Video
your
game
hot
romances
dogs.
are a
I
good
will.
example of being locked out of content.
Yes, they are. Unless a lot of them don't. Like you can like even Stardew Valley, and that's what I can't stand about it. Like it's one of my least
It is
favorite decisions.
is one of my gripes. Yeah, that it.
It's like you can marry anybody, and you can divorce this person, then marry that. You can walk. You can just. And I mean, in a game that never ends to give you the ability to keep coming back without having to restart. I kind of get that, but it's the reason that I don't have better romance dialogues. It's the reason I don't have other people marrying each other when I'm married and that kind of stuff that I already talked about. That's why I don't have a better kid. The kid doesn't grow up because it's like I don't know how to do the kid because I don't know who you're gonna marry because you can marry literally anybody.
I'm confused. What are we talking about?
Stardew Valley.
Sorry.
No, but what did Sean say?
Well, I was talking to how we talked about being locked out of part of the game. I said romances tend to be. I mean, at least in BioWare games, you cannot get away with romancing everyone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. No, you can't. You
From
cannot. Shepard
Baldur's Gate
can't go
2
through
onwards. Yeah,
That's why we're getting penny.
you can't get with Aerie and Jaheira and Baldur's Gate 2. You had to pick one, or Valencia, I think was
We'll
the other
see
one
what
you could-
Baldur's Gate 3 does because it's not BioWare. And it is
True.
definitely, they are approaching it, I think, too
And,
much
like-
of the, I mean, obviously that game's going to have choices to make. We've already seen them in the beta. But at the same time, I also get to like a little too, like the main character sucks. I think his canon name is Tav, T-A-V, but he's boring. That guy is like, yeah, you can pick the dialogue, but they don't talk. I don't know if they're ever going to talk, which isn't a deal breaker for me, but a lot of people don't like that. And like their animations, at least so far, are really dull, and like they have no personality. As hard as you try to put it into them, like because you can see them, and then you see how they don't react, whereas the other characters do the way they would. It's kind of immersion breaking, and I hate it.
Reminds me, maybe I'll play Female Shepherd for Mass
Oh, maybe
Effect
I will
Remastered.
too.
Because apparently, I mean, not that Male Shepherd's voice acting was bad,
He's
but
great.
apparently
She
Jennifer
kills it.
Hale
Yeah,
apparently
supposedly.
killed it
Really?
as Fem Shep.
That's
Maybe
what
I
everybody
will,
says.
too.
It's a very common sentiment. Yeah.
Damn, now I kinda wanna play both.
That Male Shepherd is good, but Female Shepherd is phenomenal.
And then you can still romance the women, so it's a win-win.
Win-win. Karch loves a good
well, in the
lesbian.
first game, you
video game.
cannot romance Ashley, but I think they allow.
Well, that's fine because nobody likes Ashley.
Yeah, was it Liara, the whatever that species is? She goes either way.
Yeah, it starts with an A. That's who I romanced in the first one, and then I was making a beeline towards Miranda, but then I didn't get far enough.
You can I don't know if it's the second one or the third one. I think it starts in the second one and it carries over through. You can romance Tali.
Yes, I like Tali a lot. I think it doesn't start until the third one though.
Yeah, I know you can't in the first one because
you cannot. Yeah.
Tell me more.
Because you'll kill
tell
her.
Me more.
You'll kill her if you romance her.
Far.
Yeah.
Anyway, now that the podcast has ended ambiguously.
I did the sign off.
I know, but like then you said, oh, we could just keep talking and you can use this.
Okay, well, do whatever you want.
It's Sean.
Karch is the bad ending. I'm the real ending. Later, skater. I love this podcast. I love video games, and I love you two lovely NFers. You all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
Okay, Final Fantasy bet.
I'm going to play through all of them. Not all of them. I'm going to play through 1 through 10 in a calendar year.
Is 10-2 counted?
No, it is not because I refuse to play that game.
Why?
Okay.
Because it's not good.
Oh, okay.
And then we're just talking main number, just Final Fantasy
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 10.
Why is there a 7 that's like a different thing too?
What?
Well, and that's what we're clarifying because there's like 7 Crisis Core and Dirge Cerberus. We're not counting those.
Everything in the 7 universe has like the 7 moniker.
So like,
what was your question?
Hold on,
I guarantee he didn't know Crisis Core existed.
And I mean, completion is we're not talking 100%. We're talking
no.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.
Yep.
Any version?
Can I put a limitation that you can't use like 3 times speed?
You may.
I think I'm good with any version, but you can't use speed enhancers. You got to play the game as it was originally presented.
Okay.
But like remakes for some of the earlier ones is allowed, but you just can't use like the.
Yeah, I wouldn't do this if I had to play NES version Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. You couldn't. Some of them are like it would be very difficult for me to find English versions of them. All right, cool. I've never completed 2, 3, or 6.
I feel like we should add 15.
No, gosh, I've done that once and I really never want to do that again.
Which one has lightning? That one's like super long, right?
13,
a bunch of hallway running.
13 is quite long for all the nothing that happens in
but
it. Very bad.
Isn't 13 just kind of like an MMO?
No, 11 and 14 are the MMOs.
11 and 14 are literally MMOs. 12 plays a lot like an MMO. And then 13 is not an MMO at all.
I'm gonna make you play 14, which means I win because you can't beat an MMO.
You know what? You'd be doing me a favor because I've wanted an excuse to play 14.
I actually have 14 installed on my PS4.
I do too. I actually just uninstalled it because I was like, oh wait, no, this is a bad idea. Take this off, Karch. And so I got rid of it. But I have up to I have the current expansion, and so I would just need to re-up my subscription.
Yeah.
All right. Because so to recap, I can play any version, and I can't use modern niceties, but I can still. For instance, I bought the remaster for 8, which has that. I simply can't use it.
Yes.
Which is a bummer, because I wanted to use it when I played the remaster. But that's fine. It's part of the bet. I understand. And that, I mean, you won't be able to prove I did or didn't. You'll have to take my word for it, and I will do my best to keep my word.
And so
if the terms or the what do you call the result of the bet? The winner, the reward, or whatever.
The pot, I guess.
The prize.
So if you beat Final Fantasy 1 through Final Fantasy 10 and 20 and within calendar year 2022, I will in 2023 finance all of your gaming, all of your video game purchases.
That's
Can
insane.
I start this sooner if I want to? Giving you full heads up.
And then we'll just have to basically say at 1 year out from there. So
I'll announce it on
if you were to start it tomorrow, you would then have until April 1st of 22 to have beaten them.
My God.
Right. I'll announce it on the podcast.
This is insane. I would see. I was going to go much smaller stakes on this.
What were your stakes?
I don't remember, but they're in the Hangouts. I was going to go
You said you were going to split it with Sean. That was the last thing you said regarding the stakes.
I said I was going to split one game with Sean.
One game.
Yeah.
What happens if I fail?
Then
If you
were
fail,
gonna have
I get to pick your gaming for 23.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I can't fail.
This is insane.
Jason will be whispering in his ear, like, do this one. Do this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna hope that Hatoful Boyfriend 2 comes out by then.
You could just make me play the first one. Like, that one has a bad ending too, and I got it, but it was hilarious, so I didn't care.
And it was also like 30 minutes in.
Yeah, I did it in one sitting.
I'm just gonna make you play every game that I play, so I have something to talk to about.
I'll just be Sean's shadow. All right, those are the terms.
I am gonna lose so much money.
Oh my god, this is a terrible bet that I'm glad I'm not a part of.
No, we will limit it to 6 games. So that's one every
6?
other.
Okay.
6 games for the year.
I was thinking 10 games, one for each Final Fantasy that you beat.
That's fun thematically, but I'm not going to do that to you. That's not fun.
All right.
Because I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to enjoy myself. I want to do this. I was going to do it. You're the one who brought the bet up.
Yeah,
I couldn't say no.
No, I mean, by all points of logic, this is a terrible bet because I have no control.
Right. You can't. I mean,
It's just,
we're going to
he's a
see how
DM.
much control you feel like you're going to start like, hey, this, and who knows what 2022 or whatever. Like, I'm not going to start this until much later. If I start it in 2021, it'll be much later in the year once once I know what the year has instead. Because I was talking about this with Sean earlier, Jason.
Yeah, I'm really banking on like Breath of the Wild 2 coming out and just wrecking your plans. That's really what I'm banking on here.
I can't start it any later than the January 1st. The clock starts
22,
regardless.
yes,
Let's say
yes.
January 1st, 2022. The clock starts even if I haven't committed to it yet.
Yep.
Cool. Jason's the witness.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I mean this is 100% a bad idea on my part, but it'll give us something fun to talk about. So I'm down with it, and I'll be a lieutenant next year, so I'll have the income to cover it, which I
I
may or may not
budgeted
have
it
right
in.
now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Note this down. I can't stop burping. Okay.
Disgusting 5 hot dog human being. You are not a 5-star man. You are a 5 hot dog man.
Well, I'm gonna put note 2615 burp parentheses hot dogs.